Some retcons are needed and others just make things needlessly complicated. Welcome back, Nerd Squad. It's me, Amanda. Today we'll be counting down the top 10 weirdest Marvel retcons. Let me know in the comments how you feel about when things are retroactively changed in stories. Does it work for you? Does it not? And are there exceptions to the rule, do you think? Number 10. Gwen's secret children. Norman Osborn slept with Gwen and they had twins in secret together. Shocking? You bet it was. But that is exactly what happened in this very strange retcon from Sin's past. It featured a reveal as well that Peter Parker was not in fact Gwen's first, which seemingly broke Pete's heart, despite the fact that it's been, years since Gwen has been alive at this point, and the fact that it's kind of just a weird thing to focus on, honestly, when it comes to this revelation. Especially when it comes to the caveat that your dead ex also apparently had twins in secret with one of your greatest enemies, and the person who ultimately, kind of killed her. I mean, you could say that SpiderMan killed her. You can debate that all you want, but I think Norman's presence was pretty crucial in that. And now those twins have grown up and they also think that you're their father and that you're responsible for their mother's death. So all in all, just a weird thing for Pete to focus on and just a very weird retcon in general. And friends, before I move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here and if you love when I get to smash the retcon button and talk about retcons, be sure to smash that like button to let us know you like it. Number 9. Kindred's Revelation. As weird as the previous retcon from Sin's past was, the good news is it's been retconned out of existence. Aha! This all happened during the end of Nick Spencer's run on The Amazing Spider-Man on ASM. In ASM issue number 73, which I honestly just collected because of this, it's explained to Norman by his son Harry, or I guess his son's vengeful kind of new demonic form, that Harry teamed up with Mendel Stromm and Mysterio when he was still alive to create an extremely convincing illusion, making it seem as though Norman had slept with Gwen when he actually hadn't. Gabriel and Sarah Stacy were actually not anyone's children, but simply test tube clones created based off of Norman and Gwen's combined genes. Kind of a weird retcon, but also kind of a great one. Number 8. Black Widow's origins. Black Widow used to be a ballerina. Or at least she used to be. Initially, Black Widow's origins was that she was a ballerina who married the Russian super soldier superhero Red Guardian, and after he went MIA and was basically presumed dead, getting blowed up, she decided to join up and fight for her country, inspired and impassioned into patriotic dedication by his sacrifice and unfortunate fate. However, it turned out that he never really died, but that Russia had it appear as though he did in order to manipulate Natasha into becoming one of their agents. However, then it was retconned that Natasha never really even was a ballerina at all, but merely these had been memories implanted into her mind by the Red Room, whom she was in the care of actually for most of her life, at least according to one of the accounts of the various versions of her origins. It's also been implied that she was not actually inspired to join up with the USSR following the supposed death of her husband, but instead was blackmailed into doing so. Basically, her origin is one that we seem to constantly revisit and tweak, so it's kinda hard to keep up with. To be honest, I kinda wish she had actually just got to be a real former ballerina turned spy, because that just sounds like a cool origin story to me, but hey, implanted memories. Number 7. Anyas Powers. Aranya is Anya Corazon. For those who are unfamiliar with her character, she is another Spider-Man-like superhero from Earth 616. Despite sharing some connection to the world of spider totems and spider-like abilities, Anya was actually a pretty unique character in the sense that her power origins were more steeped in mysticism and magic. She was given her powers and her heroic calling after saving Miguel Lagar, a sorcerer from the Spider Society. She didn't get a radioactive spider bite, she got a magical spider tattoo. Anya had powers that gave her superhuman reflexes, wall crawling abilities, and super strength, but she also had a spider-like exoskeleton that she could produce, acting like a shield around her. She also had a power known as the Spirit of the Hunter, which kind of sent her into a berserker rage. And because of her ties to the Spider Society, she was also extremely helpful when it came to reading prophetic scrolls that the Spider Army got a hold of during the Spider-Verse event. However, during Spider Island, her powers shifted to be basically just another carbon copy of Peter's instead, with her basically not having her original powers and then her just getting Spider-Man's powers. Although at least now with Edge and End of the Spider-Verse, Anya does seem to be recovering her original powers, so they are coming back, but it was a weird retcon, and I was just like, but it actually ties into the spider totem thing. Doesn't that make more sense? Spider totems are their own thing. Number 6. Franklin's origins. Franklin Richards is the son of Susan Storm Richards and Reed Richards. He is a member of the Fantastic Four and Future Foundation family, alongside his sister Valeria. While Valeria doesn't possess any superpowers of her own, at least not yet, although she is insanely smart, one of the smartest people in the Marvel Universe in fact, Franklin actually does have superpowers. Or he did. His powers are considered to be off the charts, or you know, at least they were. Franklin Richards had insanely powerful reality warping abilities that had been causing bouts of chaos while also sometimes being insanely useful ever since he was a baby. It was also believed that these powers were the result of him having an active and powerful mutant gene. However, as Franklin's powers recently struggled to remain consistent and eventually faded with time, he not only lost the powers, but he also lost his mutant status, which was revealed to be a result of him subconsciously reality warping his own DNA. This has made a lot of Fantastic Four fans upset, but also I'm still hoping it's leading us to something else. I'm still hoping it won't be a retcon forever and that something will shift. Maybe they had to do that because Franklin's going to be coming to the MCU and they were like, he can't be this powerful. We must nerf him in the comics. Number 5. Teresa Parker. Who is Teresa Parker? Honestly, after everything we've learned about her, that's a really great question, but one that isn't easy to answer. Initially, Teresa appeared in a non-canonical story, but ended up later being brought into the 616 continuity. There she was introduced as the possible mystery daughter of Mary and Richard Parker. Her birth being kept secret after the death of her potential parents, Teresa would be adopted and later would end up as a member of the CIA. As an adult, even she was unsure of her true parentage. It is implied, however, that she was the secret daughter of Mary and Richard, which would make her Peter's estranged sister. Eventually, her and Peter meet and even team up, but after we seemingly have somewhat confirmed her status as a Parker, although even that origin was still pretty shaky, it was later re-retconned that indeed she might not be. Chameleon attempted to manipulate Teresa, offering her alternative origins and even at one point suggesting that she may have come from the Chameleon Academy and be one of their own sleeper agents. Regardless though, Teresa addressed all the confusion of her origins by simply stating that regardless of her natural born parentage, she would always consider herself a Parker. So, hey, at least there's that. Does that make it any clearer? No, but at least we know where Teresa feels she stands. I think that's important. Number 4. Spider Totems. I explain them a lot on this channel whenever we talk about them because honestly, they're kind of weird and most people are like, what's that? What's a spider totem? To be fair, I do personally love what they have done as a concept for the Spider-Verse, basically bringing together like all the alternate versions of Spider-Man. So there's that, and I think that is a good part of them. So, okay, what are spider totems? Where did they come from? Why? Why? Well, spider totems are basically characters who are attached to the great web of life and destiny, who themselves are imbued with fated, spider-like powers thanks to their connection to, in essence, kinda like spider gods, who each represent a different archetype. With the concept of spider totems, Spider-Man and other related characters with spider-like abilities went from being heroes as the result of a freak, radioactive, accidental spider bite, or some other, freak occurrence, to becoming heroes of destiny and fate. Some people like it, some people don't. But it is a thing that exists, and we must acknowledge. Number 3. Mr. Sinister's Obsession. This has to be one of the weirdest retcons around. Although, I'm gonna be honest, I do kinda like this one. Mr. Sinister has always been known for being obsessed with the Summers family, especially Scott. This is seemingly because from a genetic standpoint, Scott Summers and his brothers have the most potential, with Sinister often believing that Scott's genes are actually the key to unlocking the most powerful mutant of all time. Typically, Sinister is a shipper of Scott and Jean together, and even went so far as to create a clone of Jean named Madeline Pryor to ship Scott with after Jean was believed to have died following the Dark Phoenix saga. I do not know where Mr. Sinister stands on the whole Emma Scott ship, however. In Sinister's own origin story as Nathaniel Essex, we later learn that this obsession with Jean and Scott together started before he was even Mr. Sinister really, with him meeting them when they traveled back to the past during a mission given to them by Clan Ascani. So basically, Sinister's obsession with Cyclops is kind of like a time paradox, because he met them as Nathaniel Essex before he met them as Mr. Sinister, but meeting them in their future, his past, made him obsessed with them in his future, their past. Number 2. Silk and SpiderMan. This is a really weird one, but thank goodness we've moved past it at this point, and even Dan Slott has admitted remorse for this weird plot point that was added into Silk's origins, as well as some other initial elements of her character that played into racial stereotypes. He has openly stated that if he even could go back in time, knowing what he knows now and hearing what he's heard from readers, he would have written things a lot differently. Honestly, a refreshing take to hear from a writer when it comes to a weird retcon that was not positively received. Silk is Cindy Moon. She was bitten by the same radioactive spider as Peter and also received spider-like abilities. Due to her and Peter sharing the connection of the same spider, which gave them their powers, she and Peter, for some pheromonal reason, had an uncontrollable desire for and attraction to one another. And I really do mean uncontrollable here. All in all, it was a weird thing that was pretty icky, to be honest, but fortunately we moved past that, and the connection no longer makes either spider-based superhero act like a horn dog around the other, so yay. Progress. Number 1. Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver's origins. Well, if you know me, you knew that we were going to talk about this because I must talk about it at every opportunity. Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver have had a tumultuous origins, to say the least. Initially, they were the children of Marya and Django Maximoff, who became indebted to Magneto as young mutants after their lives were saved from an angry mob. Quicksilver's mutant powers allowed him to move and think at super speed, and Scarlet Witch's powerful but unpredictable mutant powers allowed her to hex her enemies, and sometimes honestly her allies, even warping reality at times to do so. They were initially portrayed as kinda bad luck powers in the comics, but would evolve to become more seemingly magical, being referred to as chaos magic, and also becoming powerful enough to allow her to warp the reality of an entire universe. We'd learn eventually that the Maximoff twins were not truly the children of the Maximoffs, but were simply adopted by the couple. They were the secret twins of Magda, Magneto's wife, making them, yes, Magneto's children. This would create a tense and interesting relationship between the three, with their family ties shaping much of their personality, complexes, and history throughout the years, and adding a lot of depth to Magneto's character. However, Marvel wanted to bring these two into the MCU. At the time, this was complicated, as Wanda and Pietro were mutants, which put them in a weird contested limbo, with Fox claiming rights to them due to them owning X-Men rights at the time, and Marvel claiming rights to them for film projects due to their frequent attachment to the Avengers, and you know, they've never really been X-Men, so yeah. In order to make it so that Marvel could easily use the twins without it being contested in the MCU, they decided to detach them even further from mutant kind by retconning their origins during the events of Axis, with her alignment accidentally magically reversed as a result of a spell she herself had helped to cast. Wanda used blood magic to torment her own relatives, Quicksilver and Magneto, who were basically trying to talk her down at the time. While this worked on Pietro, it did not work on Eric, proving that he was not really their father. The High Evolutionary provided further clarification in regards to this retcon, with it being explained that the Maximoffs were actually their real parents, with the High Evolutionary merely disguising them as mutants after abducting them and experimenting on them while they were young, which also granted them their powers. Later, Quicksilver would be implied to also possibly be an Inhuman, and Scarlet Witch's powers would be firmly cemented as straight up magic strengthened by her own Romani bloodline and heritage. So nothing mutant about either of them, apparently. So House of M, Avengers vs. X-Men, there's a lot of things that now don't quite make sense. That's all the time we have for this video today. Thank you so much for joining us, and until next time, you stay nerdy, YouTube. Bye!